Hello, everybody. It's Mrs. Bartels again. I'm doing the Tuesday tape lecture for Chapter 23, and these slides 15 to 29. In your book, it will be covering pages 336 to 341. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the slides really quick. I start with special diets, which is found on page 336 of your book. Okay, go to the slideshow. The current slide. Here we go. Okay, so you guys are all probably on what we call a house diet or a regular diet or a general diet, meaning you guys don't really have any restrictions. There might be a couple of you who are diabetic or maybe have some allergies, and you might have a certain diet, but most of you at your age don't really have a strict diet or doctor ordered diets because you don't really need it at this point in time. You don't have a disease or you don't have a weight issue. Okay, so you would be what we call in a regular diet, general diet, or house diet. House diet is one that you're going to see on your state test. They like to throw that out there to you guys, and kids are like, oh, what does that mean? A house diet just means that there's no restrictions. It's the same thing as a regular or general diet. Okay, so it means basically the person, if they were not in a hospital or not in a nursing home setting, they went to a restaurant, they can order anything off the menu. There's no restriction for them. When people have restrictions, it's usually because a doctor has ordered a special diet for them, and it's usually because they have a nutritional deficiency, meaning they're missing something in their diets. Like maybe they have low iron or they have bleeding problems, so they need a high iron diet. Or they might have a disease, like maybe they have heart disease, so that means that they can't have high cholesterol, high fat stuff, so they're on a low fat diet. It might be weight control. Maybe there's some obesity going on, or they're overweight, so the doctor will put them on a diet. Or maybe they have certain substances that their body is holding on to that are too high of a count or too low of a count, and therefore the doctor has to put them on a special diet. So maybe they have, maybe they don't have good calcium, so he has to be on a high calcium diet. Or maybe they have a wound that they're trying to heal, so they put them on a high protein diet, okay, because their body isn't making enough protein to heal quickly enough. So those are different reasons why people could be on special diets. They could be missing a nutrient, like they don't have enough iron, so they're on a high iron diet. They could have a disease, like heart disease or diabetes, where they have to be put on a certain diets, weight control, like obesity, or to remove or decrease certain substances in their diets. So maybe they're having maybe their cholesterol levels are very, very high. And because they have high cholesterol levels, so they're running the risk of heart attack or stroke. So the doctor is going to put them in a low cholesterol diet because he's trying to bring that cholesterol level down. Okay. But again, if you don't have any restrictions, you're on a regular, general, or house diets. Okay. That was all on page 336 of why doctors order special diets for patients. Also describing what a regular, general, and basic diet or house diet is also on page 336. And then we are going to go into certain diets. We're going to start talking about the diets. They are outlined on page 336 and 337 in table 23.2. A clear liquid diet. A clear liquid diet is basically made of only liquids. It can be water, tea, coffee. It does not have any cream or milk in it. Carbonated drinks, gelatin. Carbonated drinks means like soda, like 7-Up and ginger ale. Jello, fruit juice that doesn't have anything floating in it. But the pulp is like the floating stuff. It has to be fruit juice. It can't have anything thick or floating in it. Broth, like chicken broth or beef broth, no noodles, no potatoes, no pieces of chicken, no carrots, no onions, just the broth, just the liquid part of the soup. Popsicles and hard candy. Think of like a Jolly Rancher. So what happens with a Jolly Rancher? When you eat it, it dissolves in your mouth like a liquid. Okay. So these are all things that can be on a clear liquid diet. A clear liquid diet is usually used, if you look in your book, it says foods that are liquid at room temperature and clear, you're able to see through them. That's what describes a clear liquid diets. They're not irritating to the stomach. They're used for people who, after surgery, to reintroduce food into the stomach. So if somebody's maybe had like a really bad bout of the flu, or maybe they had a stomach surgery and we just have to start very slowly feeding them. We start with clear liquids. Okay. A full liquid diet is all the foods that are on a clear liquid diet. So everything that we just named: coffee, tea, soda, juice without the pulp, hard candy, popsicles, all that stuff can be on a full liquid diet, as well as products that have milk in it. So like yogurt, custard, pudding, those can be included. Okay, soup that is strained. So maybe if it's a cream of potato soup, it could be cream of potato soup as long as it's just the broth or the cream part. It cannot have the potatoes, it cannot have the onions, it can't have chicken in it. It just has to be the liquid part of the soup. So if you think of like cream of chicken soup with rice, you'd have to put that through a strainer. So no chicken, no carrots, and no rice are given to the patient. It's just the liquid form. So that's what we mean when we say strained. Strained fruits and vegetables, the same thing. We could basically, if you can blend up a vegetable and put it through a strainer, whatever comes through the strainer is what you can give the patients. Cooked cereals, ice cream, and sherbets. So ice cream is made up of milk, so you can have that. Sherbet is like an ice cream in a popsicle mix, like an Italian ice mix, so you can have that. Cooked cereals, they're saying like instant oatmeal, like oatmeal, is considered a cooked cereal, a cream of wheat or cream of rice. I think that's just crazy, but when you think about it, they're saying that it's stuff that is made up of mostly liquid, and instant oatmeal, cream of rice, and cream of wheat are really made of liquid. They're made up of water or cream. So they are allowing that on a full liquid. Okay, so usually a full liquid is kind of like we start somebody on a clear liquid, and then if they do well with the clear liquid, we move them up to the full liquid. Okay, now you did good with that. So let's try some of this stuff that's a little bit thicker and might be a little bit more for your stomach to handle. Okay, so that's the full liquid. It's advanced. Like I said, one person on the clear liquid diet, if they do well in the clear liquid diet, we'll advance them to a full liquid. We use it for stomach irritation and stomach problems. We use it a lot after surgery. Like I said, I might give a patient an apple juice or a 7-Up. If they do okay with that, then I might, for lunch, say they did okay. Let's try some ice cream, or let's try a yogurt. Let's try something with a little more substance to it. Okay, so you advance. Mechanical soft diet. So the word mechanical, when you eat eats, what is the mechanics that we do? We chew. So mechanical means the chewing and the swallowing, the process. Okay, so mechanical softs, things that are easy to chew. They're soft, they're easy to chew. They're semi-solid foods that are easily digested and to chew. So it's stuff that we can easily take into our body. It's not going to irritate our body, and our body can digest it well. So it includes all liquids. It includes eggs that are not fried. So not a fried egg. You could do scrambled eggs. You could do hard-boiled eggs. You could do over easy eggs, but you cannot do a fried egg. Broiled, baked, or roasted meats. Okay, so nothing on a grill. Nothing fried, like a fried hamburger is not on a mechanical soft diet. But if it's been baked, like a baked chicken breast is fine. Roast beef is fine. But if it's been grilled or it's been fried, we cannot do it. Mild cheeses, meaning like really light cheese and easy to digest cheese. We're not going to do like a sharp cheddar cheese for this person. Strained fruit juices, bread that does not have crust, so no hard, like really crunchy French bread. You want to do like a soft roll, like a soft dinner roll, like a Hawaiian roll. Cooked or pureed vegetables. So the vegetables cannot be raw. They have to be cooked or they have to be pureed. Pureed means they're like the consistency of mashed potatoes. So think of like a squash, or think of pureed. I always think of like baby food. You know, baby food in a jar. It's basically on a spoon. It kind of looks like a combination between applesauce and mashed potatoes. So that's what pureed is. Canned fruit, as long as it doesn't have seeds or skin. Cake or cookies, as long as they don't have fruit or nuts in them. So again, it's things that are easy to eat. Okay, a cake is soft. A cookie can be soft. They can be easy to chew and swallow and digest unless they have fruit or nuts in them. Okay, bread. Hawaiian rolls or dinner rolls are really soft, but a hard like French bread, a baguette would be difficult. Okay, so it's the stuff that's easy. I always think of mechanical soft. It's easy to chew. It's easy to take in. Another great one that they don't have listed here in mechanical soft is pasta. Okay, because pasta is easy to chew. I also think of mechanical soft when I think about it is like when I started feeding my kids, things that kids would probably eat. Okay, they will eat simple stuff like this. They'll eat bread. They'll eat fruit. They will eat, so it's things that if you've ever been sick and you want to start eating, but you're not going to go and get like a Big Mac at McDonald's. So your mom might be like, hey, let me make you, a little bit of chicken or a little bit of rice or maybe a little bit of pasta. Okay, so it's mild, easiest to digest foods. So that's your mechanical soft. So again, we start with those clear liquids. We go to a full liquid. If they do good on full liquid, we would advance them to mechanical soft diets. Your mild cheeses include American Swiss cheese, cheddar cheese, cream cheese, or cottage cheese. So those are some examples of the cheese that you could have. Nothing fried on a mechanical soft. Okay, the next one that we're going to talk about, and we're just going down, I believe, in the order. Yep. Of page 336, the next one is the fiber diet, the high fiber diet. So we need fiber to help with our bowel, to keep our bowel regular. It helps with constipation. It helps with the stomach disorders. So fiber is really important to keep things regulated and keep things moving. So we take all this food in. If we don't have enough fiber, our body's not going to create the bulk it needs to have bowel movements and to eliminate the waste. So high fiber helps with the constipation, so people do not get constipated, helps keep the stomach moving through the process that it needs to go through and help that colon. High fiber diets include any fruit or vegetable. Okay, a huge one that's high in fiber is apples. Whole grain breads and cereals. So whole grain is always better than like a white bread. Whole grain wheat is always better. Whole grain cereals like Kashi cereal is really good for you. Raisin Bran is good for you. Believe it or not, Cheerios is whole grain. So you got to look at your cereals to make sure you're eating the whole grains. Fried foods, milk, cream, butter, and cheese, and meats. And you're like, whoa, this sounds great. It does kind of, because you get to have your fried foods, your milk, your cream, your butter, and your cheese. But again, those all help keep you regulated so you can have bowel movements and meats. A high fiber diet is always the best thing to do. But it is important to help with the bowel. So if you look on page 336, it says it's used for people that have colon disease or diarrhea. Okay. I'm reading really quick for you guys. I'm sorry. Nothing fried again. Yeah, I would just know for your fiber diet that it's used to help with constipation, GI disorders is what I would know for the high fiber diet. Okay, so constipation and GI disorders is what I would know for the high fiber diets, and that fruits and vegetables are where we get that fiber from. Okay, and now we're going to go on to bland diets. The word bland. So we're not going to go on to a bland diet. Hold on, let me find the bland diets. Okay, I guess I'm sorry, guys. Hang on. Okay, the bland diet is skipped in the PowerPoint, it looks like, but it is on your test. So let's talk about the bland diet. On page 337, it talks about a bland diet. Bland diets are foods that are non-irritating and low in roughage. They're easy to eat and easy to digest foods. They do not have a lot of spice. They do not have a lot of extras like dressings and condiments or toppings. They're just kind of bland and boring. So I always think of the bland diet as the blah diet. Okay, we're not going to have a lot of like paprika added into it. We're not going to add a lot of cayenne into it. It's not going to have a lot of chili pepper. It's kind of bland, boring diets. It's used for people that have ulcers or gallbladder disease. Also for people who have after surgery. We don't want to initiate like a bowl of chili after surgery into somebody's stomach. So we start with a bland, boring diet. If you look on page 337 of your book, it talks about pastas and rice are a good choice. You can do carrots and peas if they're strained and they're softened, beets, spinach, asparagus, cream soups are all allowed, okay? So potatoes, as long as they're not fried. So basically it's boiled stuff like potatoes, rice, pasta, but not with sauce. Kind of like pasta. I always say, like when my kids were sick, we used to do butter noodles. We would give them like pasta with gravy or Italian gravy, that heavy red sauce. But if they were not feeling good and they wanted to try to eat something, I say, all right, I'll make some noodles with butter. So a little bit of pasta with butter and light cheese, not heavy sauces, not heavy spices. That's what a bland diet is. It's blah. not a lot of spice. Okay, page 337 in your book. Now we'll go on to the high calorie diet. High calorie diets are used for weight gain and for some thyroid problems. So if somebody has a thyroid that's malfunctioning, it's called hyperthyroidism or Hashimoto's, they would have to have a high calorie diet. And what happens with that is the thyroid overacts, and the patient, no matter how much they eat, cannot gain weight. I had that when I was pregnant with both my boys. I lost a lot of weight. Instead of gaining weight when I was pregnant, I actually lost to the point that I was under 100 pounds when I was pregnant with my first son, and I only gained 2 pounds when I was pregnant with my second son. And they found out I had a thyroid problem. So when I get pregnant, I have to eat large amounts of food to make up for this thyroid dysfunctions happening with the pregnancies. So what they would have me do is eat things that were high in protein in large amounts. So increased in calories in all food groups, large food proteins. So it's like, okay, have 2 helpings of spaghetti, have a double cheeseburger instead of a single cheeseburger. And I would have to eat 3 times a day plus meals in between. And it was meals. It was like big, heavy snacks or meals in between. It wasn't like 2 cookies. It was like, okay, have your breakfast. And then between breakfast and lunch, we're going to have you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a chocolate milk, and a banana. And you're like, I just ate, and they're going to have you eat again. Okay, another person that does a high calorie diet is athletes. They're trying to gain weight. Sometimes we'll see that with a wrestler. Wrestlers are a little insane with their weight because they have to make certain weight classes. So they might gain a lot. They might try to gain a lot of weight. They make their weight class, and they might try to lose weight. So they can go on those high calorie diets back and forth, athletes. High iron diets are used for people who have blood loss or blood problems. Women who have anemia, women who have a lot of blood loss maybe from their menstrual cycle might be put in a high iron diets. Foods that obviously have a lot of iron in them are given. This includes foods like liver meats and organ meats, egg yolks, green leafy vegetables like kale, mustard greens, spinach, okra, dried beans, lima beans, and peanut butter, and rich breads and cereals. So high iron diets are used for blood disorders. Make sure you know that. So somebody who has anemia might be in a high iron diet. Okay, so high iron diets are foods that are high in iron. They help with anemia and blood loss, page 337 in your book. Also, women that are pregnant, their iron levels will usually drop. So they might put them on an iron pill when you're pregnant because iron is really important in the fetal development and the baby development. Okay, so you might have taken an iron supplement if you're pregnant. Many people that are pregnant do have to take this. Okay, so the next one is fat control diet or low cholesterol. So low cholesterol or fat control, we need to make sure the fat, we're eating low fat, low cholesterol for our heart. Our heart and our arteries the pathways to our heart cannot take all the fats and all the cholesterol that we eat in America. That's why heart disease is like the number 1 killer and the highest disease in America, especially in females. So foods that are low in fat or prepared without adding fat is what we want to have. So we want to have low fat foods or not add fat to the food when you're making it. These are people that have had a heart attack, heart disease, family heart history, gallbladder, pancreatic, and liver disease. Okay, almost everybody in America should probably be on a low fat, low cholesterol diets. We have fat-free or skim milk. That means no vitamin D, whole milk. Whole milk is not allowed. It should be fat-free or skim. 2% is fine. 2%, 1% or skim. Cottage cheese, no other cheese. So no other cheese, no cheddar cheese, no American cheese, no cheese. If you have to have cheese, they say it's got to be a white cheese, but it really should be no cheese. Lean meats, meaning a lean meat is usually a white meat, like a chicken, boneless, skinless chicken. Okay. Or if you're going to have, or a fish, if you're going to have a red meat, it has to be like 10% or less of fat and 90% of meats. So when you're going to get that ground beef, you might want to look at the label. Is it 95-5%, 90-10%? That's fine. If it says that it's 80-20, that is not low fat. That's not low cholesterol. You should not be eating that. Margarine instead of butter. Rice, pasta, bread, and cereals are fine. And vegetables and potatoes are good. Okay. So this may seem like, oh, this is awful. I will say this is kind of the diet that we eat in our house. And when I first got married, I didn't eat this way. But my husband And as we aged and we realized that there's a lot of heart disease in our family, or in his family especially, and we wanted to do the right thing for our bodies, we made some changes. We went from whole milk to the 2% milk. It's not bad. It's fine. Cottage cheese, like one of my favorite things to eat now. We eat a lot of chicken, boneless, skinless chicken in our house, more than red meats. I would eat fish, but my kids and my husband won't. Low fat broth or soups. We don't eat a lot of soup. And if we do, it's usually like once or twice a month. We do use margarine over butter. We eat a lot of pasta and a lot of rice, and we definitely have a vegetable or potato with every night. So every night at dinner, we have a meat, a vegetable, either rice, pasta, or potatoes. And that is our staple. So again, it can be done, guys. It's not horrible. It should be something you should be looking into now, and not only for your health and your heart, because the years of cholesterol and the years of fat add up. Okay, it's time to make your changes in your diet now. But if you make the changes, your parents can start making those changes. Because here's the deal: once the fat and the cholesterol are built up on the arteries, the damage is done. It's just a matter of how much more damage are we going to do. Okay, so make the changes. The sodium control diet. Okay, so salt, sodium, another one that we really are bad about. So it's the fat, the cholesterol, and the sodium that actually are what hurts Americans in their diets. So with the sodium diets, sodium control, certain diseases and drugs cause the body to retain extra sodium. Sodium causes us to retain water. It means sodium makes us swell. Sodium makes our body keep water inside. Which too much, when we have too much sodium, our tissues will swell up. There's extra fluid that's left in the blood vessels, and the heart then has to work harder to push that fluid through the body. So sodium, increased salt and increased sodium is really bad because it makes the heart work even harder. And our heart is just a muscle. It's just a pump. Eventually it can give out. So we don't want to put extra strain on it. Sodium control decreases the amount of sodium in the body, which then helps the heart. Sodium control diets involve omitting high sodium foods, especially canned foods like canned vegetables are loaded with sodium. Frozen foods as well. Not adding salt when you're eating, or adding salt to your diets, or adding extra salt on your food. And limiting the salt that you use when you cook. Okay, so use a different spice. Instead of salt, use garlic, use oregano, use basil, use parsley. Put some kind of supplement in there besides the salt if you need for seasoning. Okay, so try not to add salt when you're cooking, and try not to add salt to your food. And avoid the high sodium foods, which is canned foods as well as frozen foods. They're really low with sodium. Another one, and I'm going to tell you guys that my students know this, I absolutely hate it, is ramen noodles. If you guys actually look at the amount of sodium in one helping of ramen noodles, you would not believe how dangerous ramen noodles are. Okay, one helping of ramen noodles, and you met the maximum amount of sodium you should have in a day. So ramen noodles, eating them over and over again, you're just basically telling your little arteries, choke off and make the heart work harder. Ramen is not good. Stop eating it. So if you look at sodium controlled, a certain amount of sodium is allowed. That's on page 337. This is heart disease, fluid retention, liver disease, and some kidney diseases. Fruits and vegetables and unsalted butter are allowed. Adding salt is not allowed. Okay, and you avoid high in salt foods. Okay. Let me see what else on here. Protein. The diabetic meal plan on page 337. So when somebody's diabetic, they have to have the same amount of carbs, proteins, and fats eaten at the same time each day. Okay, it's very regimented. A diabetic's diet has to be regimented, meaning that they're allowed 6 carbs and 3 protein, or 6 carbs, 8 proteins, and 2 fats at breakfast. On Tuesday, they need to have that on Wednesday at the same thing. Okay, Thursday the same thing, Friday the same thing. It's very regimented. It has to be comprised of the same amount of food each meal, and it has to be given at the same time of day. So like if somebody eats breakfast at 8 o'clock on Tuesday and they're diabetic, they need to eat breakfast on Wednesday at 8 o'clock, Thursday at 8 o'clock, Friday at 8 o'clock. It has to be very regimented, very scheduled, and very strict in order for it to work effectively. So let's talk about diabetes. So diabetes is a chronic illness in which the body cannot produce or use insulin properly. So diabetes is usually treated with insulin or other drugs, diet, and exercise. So basically what happens with diabetes is the body needs insulin and the pancreas, which is an organ in your body, does not create the insulin like a normal person. So like I don't have diabetes. So my pancreas makes the insulin that I need to break down the food and make food work correctly in my body. Somebody with diabetes, their pancreas does not do that. So they don't have insulin. So we have to give them insulin and we have to make sure that we give them the drugs needed. So when they're eating, their food is broken down correctly because they don't make that insulin. Okay. So they have to be very careful about what they eat, and what they eat has to match the insulin that we have to give them. And we also have to make sure they exercise to burn off that extra carbs and that extra energy they might take in. The meal plan involves a diet that is based on calories needed. They have to have the same amount of carbs, protein, and fat eaten each day. Usually it's like a 1,500, 1,800, 2,000 calorie a day. And the person that decides this is a dietitian and a doctor together, not a CNA, not a nurse. When somebody is diagnosed as a diabetic, they have to see their doctor on a regular basis. They're sent to a nutritionist or a dietitian who will evaluate how they eat, teach them the correct way to eat, and tell them how many calories, how many carbs, how many proteins, how many fats. It involves a lot of patient education and also family education. So when somebody is diagnosed as diabetic, there's a lot. So when you have a patient who's a diabetic and they're telling you that this is what happens with their diet and this is how they have to eat, you might want to trust them because they've been very well educated on it. Okay. But if it seems like they're telling you things like, oh, well, my doctor says I can have Snickers and I can have Coca-Cola and I can eat anytime I want, you know that's wrong. But they're saying, no, I have to have cottage cheese and fruit, raisin toast, and a hard-boiled egg every day at 8 a.m. They know their diet. Okay. So sometimes they need to be very regimented and they might be a little bossy about their diets. They also can cheat though, especially people who are younger than are diagnosed with diabetes. It's very difficult. It's a regimented, strict diet. It's like you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this. And they try to sneak food and they try to cheat. So you have to watch out for that. They need to eat their meals and snacks at regular times to maintain certain blood sugar levels. Always report what a person did and did not eat. The nurse will tell you what to do. So never attack a patient and be like, I found Reese peanut butter cups in a Coca-Cola Classic in your bottom drawer. Don't do that. That's not your job. If you find stuff like that, you know the patient's diabetic, come and talk to the nurse and the nurse will handle it. Okay. Or if you clear their tray and you realize they didn't eat anything, it's really important that you tell the nurse, hey, Mr. Smith didn't have any breakfast today. And I just want, I want to make sure you know that because he's a diabetic. Because if you don't tell me that, I might go in there thinking he ate everything and give him his medicines and his blood sugar is going to drop because his medicine's there to, the medicine I give him is because he ate. So make sure you let the nurse know what they ate and what they didn't eat. Okay. And the nurse will tell you the next steps in the process. So that's your diabetic diet. It's a little strict. So the diabetic meal plan is described on page 338 of your book. It explains that diabetes is a chronic illness. A meal plan for healthy eating is developed. Consistency is key. So it's consistency and regimen that's key for the diabetic. And it goes on to tell you exactly what I just said, that they have the same amount of carbs and proteins and fat are eaten each day. They are eaten at certain amount of times and certain at regular times, eating at regular times. Make sure that you always serve the meals and snacks on time to a diabetic. Always check what was eaten, report what the person did or did not eat. A between a meal snack makes up for what was not eaten. The nurse will tell you what to provide. So if a person maybe doesn't eat their breakfast and you notice and they're diabetic, you can talk to the nurse and she'll tell you what you can give. Do not just give a diabetic food. Talk to the nurse. If they're requesting for extra food or if they have not eaten, let the nurse know. She'll tell you how to regulate it. Okay. Um, so anytime you have an eating habit change or you notice that things are not right with your eating, make sure you let that nurse know because it affects the medication she's giving. So that's your diabetics. On page 338, I wanted to go back really quick about the sodium diets. So we're going to take the slides back a little bit here. The sodium control diets. So according to the American Heart Association, the daily diet intake for sodium is not greater than 3,400 milligrams. Okay, so no more than 3,400 milligrams. For each adult, they're suggesting 1,500s. So according to our American Heart Association, the average amount of sodium in a daily diet is greater than 3,400. So saying that in America, the average diet has over 3,400 milligrams of sodium. They're recommending that we only have 1,500. So we are double taking in on a regular basis every day. Americans are taking in twice the amount of sodium they should be, is what the American Heart Association is saying. So know that 1,500 milligrams is the recommended dose of sodium. 1,500 milligrams of sodium in a diet a day. Okay. Hold on. I went to grab a ramen noodle to read the package to you, but I can't because we don't have any ramen because I don't let my kids have it. But sometimes we do have it in the house. But just to give you an idea of sodium, look at some labels of the stuff that you guys eat and the amount of sodium that's in it. I'm looking right now at a can of soup, a New England clam chowder soup, which clam chowder is a pretty healthy soup. I'm looking at it, and the sodium in one can of clam chowder soup, and one can is enough for one serving, it says. I'm sorry, this is 2 servings. So 2 people. So 1 serving of sodium. I just lost it. So 1 can of cream. Oh my goodness, you guys. 880 milligrams of sodium is in 1 can of Campbell's soup. And that is the New England clam chowder. You should start reading your labels and be very, very careful with the sodium. Okay, so, and I will tell you, I do believe that ramen is almost, I want to say 3,000 milligrams for 1 pack of ramen, but I can't remember. Okay, so be careful what you're eating, guys. All right. The dysphagia diet. This is our last diet we got to do. Yes, it is. This is the last diet we need to talk about. Okay, so your dysphagia diets is a diet for people who have difficulty swallowing. Dys is difficulty, phagia is swallowing, so difficulty swallowing. It means that a person when they swallow, they might swallow at a slower pace than a normal person, and food can get stuck, or food might enter into the airway, which is called aspiration. Know what aspiration is? It's when we breathe fluid, food, vomit, or any object that goes into your lungs other than air. The only thing that should be in your lungs is air. So if something else lands up in your lungs, that is aspiration. People that are on dysphagia diets need to follow aspiration precautions, and the care plan will have specific ways that they need to be positioned and fed and parameters that you have to follow. So make sure you read your care plans. So aspiration precautions is found on page 339 in your book. It means when somebody's on aspiration precautions, they have difficulty swallowing, you have to help them with their meals and snacks. You cannot just put their food in front of them. You have to help them. You have to sit them up. You have to make sure that you're observing them while they eat. So it says position a person upright, position as a nurse and care plan direct you to, and keep them in an upright position 1 hour after eating. Okay, support their upper back and shoulders and neck so they don't slope down in the chair. Follow the care plan regarding straws. Are they allowed to have a straw or are they allowed not to have a straw? It's important that you know that and what it says on the care plan, because people who are on aspiration precautions, sometimes if they have a straw, they'll suck food down too quickly. And because they're swallowing and gag reflex is delayed, that food or that fluid can land up into the lung. So make sure you know if they are allowed to have a straw or not. Observe for signs and symptoms of aspiration during meals and snack, meaning are they coughing? Are they trying to clear their throat more than usual? Are they gargling, or do they have a hoarse sound like that? Like that. Check the person's mouth often as they're eating. See if they're pocketing food, meaning they're leaving food in the back of their mouth or underneath their tongue, or it's stuck to the roof of their mouth because they're having a hard time pushing it down, but they keep taking it in. They kind of look like little chipmunks. Are they having food pockets? Check for that. Make sure you do mouth care after they eat, so you could find any food that might have been left behind, and report or record any observations that you see. So if you see a patient who's having a harder time, taking longer to eat than usual, or might be coughing or gurgling while they're eating, stop. Tell them to stop eating and go get your nurse, okay? Because that is signs of aspiration. So on page 339 of your book, it talks about dysphagia, the signs and symptoms of it. Make sure you know that. And it talks about aspiration precautions on page 339. Know those two tables or boxes, box 32.3 and 32, or I'm sorry, 30, box 23.3 and box 23.4. Make sure you know that, okay? And know what aspiration is and dysphagia. So in the dysphagia diet box on page 338, it talks about if somebody's on dysphagia diets, they might not be able to have regular liquids. Their liquids might have to be thickened. In order to thicken liquids, we literally will take like a cup of water and we add this powder into it and we stir it. And then as we stir it, the water becomes thickened. And depending on what thickness they need, you add that amount to it. So if it's maybe like a nectar thick, then we just add a little bit of the powder. If it's honey thick, we have to add usually 2 teaspoons. If it's yogurt thick, it's 3 teaspoons. If it's puree thick, it's 4 teaspoons. So you keep adding the powder until you get to the right consistency or thickness. So thickened liquids means that there's no lumps. They're thickened to the consistency of baby food. It does not mound on the plates. Okay, so if I have water and it has to be thickened, it means you're going to put like 1 scoop of that thickener powder in it. It's going to be as thick as baby food, but it's not going to like pile up like in a mound if you pour it on my plate. Okay, if it's nectar thick, that's usually 2 teaspoons worth of the powder. It's nectar thick, so it means like when you hold it up on a spoon and you pour it, it kind of will pour a little bit thicker than water, okay, but it doesn't hold a shape. And we'll show you in class. We'll do the different thicknesses in class. Honey thick, basically it will mound on the spoon, and when you pour it, it pours like honey. And pureed, there's no lumps, the mounds on a spoon, and they're thick like mashed potatoes. Okay, so know what pureed is. I will put a video up in Schoology explaining different diets or different consistencies to you guys. Okay. This is what we talked about, things that you need to report. So when you're feeding somebody with dysphagia, again, that is on page 338 of your book, and I talked about it. If they have hoarseness, if they're coughing, if they have pockets in their mouth, the runny nose or sneezing, decreased appetite, things you need to report. When feeding a person with dysphagia, you must follow the aspiration precautions. I already talked to you about this. Help the person with all the meals and snacks. This is on page 339 of your book, and I discussed it a couple slides back with you too. Okay, we are down to the last couple of slides, I believe. Yep, we are. Okay. So food intake. So when we are feeding people, we need to keep track of how much they're eating. What are they taking in? That's what food intake is. So it's measured in 2 ways. It's the percentage of food eaten or the calorie count. You do the percentages, okay? So if somebody is, if you're feeding somebody, or if we are watching how much we need to know exactly how much somebody ate, you would do the percentages. So you basically can look at their plate and say, okay, this first plate here, nothing was eaten. The steak's there, the potatoes there, the strawberries there, and the asparagus is still there. The next plate, you'll see a couple bites are gone, a couple of strawberries are missing, a couple of asparagus. So maybe 1/4, 25% was eaten. Okay. This one here, all right, we're maybe at 33%. 50%, meaning half of it's gone. 75%, meaning they almost ate it all. And 100% they ate it all. Okay. Usually the way they record in the nursing homes is 25, 50, 75, or 100. Okay. So 0, nothing. 25, 1/4 of the food is gone. So if you look here, you got 4, 6, 8, 4, 6. She ate 2 of her strawberries. That's 1/4. There were 8. There were 8 over here. She ate 2. So she ate 1/4 of her strawberries. She ate about 1/4 of her potato and 1/4 of her steak. Okay. So here she ate about half of it. See, half that potato is gone, half the steak is gone. There were 8 strawberries. There's only 4. So she ate 50%. 75% means it's almost all gone. Okay. So that's how we usually record 0, 25, 50, or 75, or 100. They ate it all, which is what we would always love to eat, but not always happening. If somebody's on a calorie count, the nurse or the dietitian will count up the calories. You don't need to know how many calories was in that potato or in that steak. You just need to tell me how much they ate. So, hey, Nurse Lori, they ate half of their steak. They ate all their strawberries. Just tell me the percentage of what they ate, and I or the dietitian will convert those portions, the percentage, into calories. That's how you do a calorie count. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to do the math. You just have to tell me how much of the potato did they eat, how much of the steak did they eat, and then either the nurse or the dietitian will figure out the calories that they ate. Okay. And we are going to stop there, I believe. Yeah, and that's where we're going to stop for today.